Welcome to Mama Tusa, Conversations with a Midwife. I'm your host, Atusa Benji. A quick note before today's episode. This show talks about birth, life, death, and all the complexities in between. My goal is always to share stories that leave you feeling empowered, but please know that some topics may be challenging or deeply moving. Also, while I'm an experienced midwife, I'm not your midwife, and the information on this podcast is not intended to be medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider when considering what is best for you as an individual. Now, without further ado, I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Mama Tusa podcast. I am so excited to have you on. I feel like I know you just because so many of my clients and doula students and midwives that I've worked with have mentioned your name. And I'm like, who is this princess lady already? I have to meet her. And not only that, I have to have her on the podcast because I've been stalking you a little bit, seeing all the things that you're doing. Welcome. Princess Istasha McKinney is my guest today. Princess is a mama, an author, birth and postpartum doula, and the founder of Bellibind, which I'm so excited to hear more about, not only your company, but also the theory behind how belly binding works. So welcome to the Mama Tusa podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Maybe let's start with your birth experiences, because I'm assuming that's where things took off from, or were you already in the field and then you had babies?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for having me here.
My pleasure.
I've heard also such amazing things about you and your healing hands and beautiful work that you do for moms and families. So my journey started as a hairstylist and thinking that was my call to go out and support women and feeling beautiful, right? Fast forward, got to work with Ricky Lake on like a private in-home hairstyling project. And that was right around the time she started the documentary of The Business of Being Born. So she gave me a copy and was like, so nice speaking with you. I happened to be pregnant at the time. And so she gave it to me. I had went through an abortion journey due to domestic violence and stuff like that. So it was very healing for me to dive into that documentary and eye-opening. 2 to 4 years later, I found my way into birthwork. It was like that tiny little seed was planted. And after my father's passing, who was an evangelist and just a big lover and nurturer who adopted me and my sisters. So I just got to feel so much unconditional love after going through rejection and, not feeling that nurturing. And after his passing, it really opened my heart up. And I was like, okay, I want to make my dad really proud. I know he was proud of me just for being his daughter, but on the other side, I was like, Dad, watch what I do now in your honor. And
oof, goosebumps.
Yeah, I get emotional because it really was a spiritual awakening for me and soul searching. And a lot of things kind of reconnected from past points. And it was a vision I had of a woman figure holding a baby I was searching, and I found it on a doula website. And I was like, oh, this is the image that I've had in a vision. This is the path for me. So
birthwork finds us, I find. I always say that birthwork will come for you and it will sneak in and call you in. And if you don't answer, it's unrelenting. It will keep calling you in until you are there. So it sounds like Ricky Lake was your catalyst, as I think she was for many, because she changed the world with that documentary. Number of people, I used to teach childbirth classes really regularly, and when I would say, how did you find out about this class, people would raise their hand and be like, the Ricky Lake documentary. So thank you, Ricky Lake. She's done some amazing work.
I know.
Wow. So you started doing doula work first?
Yeah. Yep. So I got to be a part of Anna Paula Markel's amazing doula training.
Workshop.
Yes. And
Hi, Anna Paula.
I know she's still a mentor to me to this day and has really along my journey pushed me beyond what I thought I was capable of. And she's the reason why I became a birth and early parenting educator And, kind of started immersing myself in the birth world and discovered belly binding through a midwife who was bringing it here to the West from her culture, and among other warming practices and rituals that stood out the most to me. And I didn't know why at the time, but I did know that it allowed me to show up more for my clients. And I became a birth and postpartum doula because I wanted that continuous care for my clients. I wanted them to have the same person throughout their whole journey. And so what I saw in that transition with them was this huge void in how we tend to postpartum, especially over 12 years ago. That was, my postpartum doula training had 3 doulas in it, opposed to my birth doula training had like 35,
Yeah.
And I just saw belly binding as this really powerful tool to help moms reconnect to their body and slow down and embrace the pause. And any clients that I got the opportunity to do it with, they acknowledged that. They're like, wow, this is just, it's like a container of support. It feels like a hug. And that's where a lot of our branding comes from now, is like, it's a hug for you. Mm-hmm. So it did start before I had children. It evolved, Bellibind evolved even more after my own birth journey. So to your point, yes, my birth experiences informed our practice so much more on like how needed it is for moms beyond just like, this is just great support. It's so spiritual, and it's a ritual of intentionality, right? Rituals in general are small things done with intention. So
with wisdom.
And wisdom.
Yes. Some of the rituals that in my culture we have, and when I was a young woman, I was like, oh, give me a break. And then I got older and I was like, wow, there is tremendous wisdom in these rituals that I poo-pooed as a young girl because I was assimilating to American culture, and that was old school. And now I go back to those rituals and I bring them in for my children and grandchildren.
What?
And I find,
I'm curious.
Oh yeah.
What rituals stand out?
There are so many. First of all, my grandmother, rest her soul, who's my catalyst into midwifery, when we got our periods, she would throw us a party.
Oh.
There would, straight up, we would come home from school and we would walk into a room of women.
Oh.
And the aunts would be called, and the grandmothers would be called, the great grandmothers would be called, and we were served like a baklava type.
I love baklava.
But I know. Baklava is like food of the gods, right?
The decadent,
decadent, buttery, nutty, but it actually had a healing component to it because all of those nuts brought healing to the uterus, and the butter we know is healing to the uterus. A lot of cultures use butter in the postpartum period.
Yeah,
and the sugar fat. And the cardamom and just the serotonin rush from the sugar and the cardamom and the butter and the flour and all of those things that are delicious. Yes. And for years I thought, my aunt still talks about it, about the day that she came home from school and she was mortified that there was like a period party going on, and it was surprise, the whole neighborhood knows that you got your period.
Oh my gosh.
But now we talk about it with such love and honor, right? Because there's a wisdom to all of that. It's the beginning of you having potential to have a baby, which is one of our superpowers. So why not honor it from the get-go? So that's just one example, but there are many, 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 including put on your socks after you have a baby, stay warm, don't sit on the floor that's cold, don't walk around with cold hair, wet hair that can make you cold. Like all of those warming rituals they go through many continents. It's not just from one place.
Yeah.
And there's so many threads to it because I know stuff obviously from Persian, Iranian culture, from the Middle East, but then my friends and coworkers from the Far East have very similar cultures. I'm like, what are you all doing that? Like, you're Korean or you're Japanese and we're Middle Eastern, but the cultures collide when it comes to women's health. So I love all of that. So tell me about your births.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback on what you said really quick, because I love that you highlighted that, because that's one thing I talk about, like at the very beginning of my book, is this cross-cultural, multicultural practice within postpartum rituals.
Yeah.
And how belly binding is one of those things. It's multicultural. It's not isolated to just one community, but from Latin America to Eastern Asia to Africa, like everywhere practices it. And so, yep, to your point, like a lot of these holistic postpartum caretaking, self-tending rituals, so deeply rooted ancestrally in our cultures.
And so much now forgotten, with families being so alone. Mm-hmm. Families, becoming families, or people having babies, and some people have an experience where they are so honored and so revered and so taken care of during the pregnancy, and then they have the baby and it's like, oh, cute baby, bye, and it's like, wait a second. Whereas in many cultures, you literally have 40 days of being honored and being held and being cared for that are vital to your coming back together emotionally, physically, mentally.
Yeah. That reclamation process.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I would love to hear what belly binding does for that, and where it came from.
Yeah. So in regards to the practice of belly binding and my own birth experience and how it informed it. Belly binding in general is a long piece of fabric that is wrapped intentionally, each layer around the womb space, to create a container of warmth and support. Right? Those warming aspects that you mentioned. It's so crucial. The style that we practice with belly bind is rooted in more of like Eastern Asian culture, Bengkung belly binding, which is like an Indonesian Malay style. It's modified from its more true traditional style because it's a thicker knot in their traditional way, where today we do it a little more flat so that it doesn't show underneath clothing as much and doesn't really bother baby, when they're doing skin to skin. But I really leaned into that style more than anything because I felt after practicing a couple variations with clients that it just was more secure and long lasting in the support structure. Mm-hmm. So I really loved that and anchored into that style. And then with my own experience with birth, I had what I say with my first, all the births in one. I had planned on a birth center birth with midwives, labored at home for as long as possible, transferred in that transfer process from home to the birth center. My baby got into a weird asynclitic position, and then decided to artificially rupture membranes thinking that might help progress things, and it didn't. It just kept her stuck.
Doesn't help with asynchronism.
And the second midwife who relieved the first one who suggested that was like, why did you guys do this? Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So I ended up transporting after 40 hours. Oof. Of labor.
A long time.
And was like, okay, I surrender. And the surrender, I learned a lot about that through this birth. Yeah. Had great doctors who were willing to try to help me, just be patient with my body after the epidural, kind of helped me stop the urge to push. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately,
which happens with asynclitism, right?
Yes.
It's like that
it was so bizarre. It was so bizarre to me because at the time, let's see, when did I, 12, 13, 14, 15. So my 3 years as a doula servicing home births and hospital births, I had not experienced asynclitic births or the premature urge to push.
Oh, yeah.
So it was like,
brutal.
Wait, I have the urge to push and I'm not ready. I'm confused.
10.
Yes.
No, I'm not. What were you, 5, 6?
I was like 3.5.
Ooh.
Yes. And
cervical
swelling. So by the time I got there, they're like, you're 8, but your cervix is really swollen. And I'm like, oh gosh. They're like, we could stretch it. I got to 9.5 and they're like, we could stretch it, but we could tear the cervix and that could cause issues. And I said, no, I want 5 babies. So no.
Yeah. And thank God for epidurals.
Yeah.
They work really well for that.
Yeah, because I didn't need the epidural for pain.
Right.
I had 3 doulas, like I had a tribe of doula sisters who were helping me. I had my own sisters who were there. So I had ton of support and ways to provide comfort, right? So I surrendered to the C-section, and I was also running a fever and things like that, right? And so in that C-section recovery, I was so grateful that I, 1, had my Bellibind with me, and 2, that I knew how to do it, because there weren't a lot of practitioners at the time. I want to say there was 2 of us offering it in the Los Angeles area. And so I had no one to come do it for me. So my belly was so distended from the surgery. It was the first kind of major surgery I ever had. And I hear this a lot with women who get C-sections. Like, this was my first major surgery. So the trauma of it and the wrapping just provided such a comfort and support that the Velcro binder wouldn't even fit around me. The largest size was like, are you kidding me? Like, was this even made for C-section moms?
Right. And I'm sure that changed practice.
Yeah. So the gas movement, I felt like I had a snake in my belly. And I was like, did they get the baby out? Like, what's
going on in there?
Yeah. So that really informed me of how needed, how powerful the belly binding was for not just the most holistic home birth, vaginal birth experience, but especially for the surgical birth moms. So I say about 50% of our client base is C-section moms too.
Well, it makes sense because the C-section rate is 30 to 40% in Los Angeles. So that would track. Tell me, what does a belly bind look like?
Yes. Oh, it's so beautiful. It's a long piece of fabric, right, that is wrapped around intricately in a twist knotting method.
Okay.
So you get this beautiful twist-like braid up the center. And so I did 2 client sessions today before coming here.
How fun.
And the one right before I got here, her mother was there. And I find a lot of the times the grandmas are looking at it and they're like, oh my gosh, like, we didn't have anything like this in the 50s, 60s, and how beautiful it is. I'm like, yes, it is so beautiful. And it just goes away from that medicalized synthetic fiber, Velcro strapping in garment to a very breathable, soft cotton.
It's made of cotton.
Mm-hmm. It's 100% cotton. We call them our soft tie belly wraps because they are just so soft and comfortable, low irritation. Moms who are hypersensitive, and especially after birth, your skin in general is hypersensitive, I feel
for
like.
sure.
And then especially if you had any type of IV or epidural or medication, it's even more sensitive. That when they use those synthetic binders, they often get like contact dermatitis and irritation, and they never experience that with our wraps because it's cotton, because it's breathable. And I share a lot about how the frequency of our clothing and our materials is so important, especially after birth when we're so open. Spiritually open and sensitive. And what we know from research is cotton vibrates at a higher frequency. Closer to life frequency and love frequency. Water frequency, all of those whereas synthetic fibers like nylon and spandex are low frequency vibration garments, closer to the frequency of death. And we don't want that on our bodies after birth.
No, thank you. No, actually, I have a very visceral reaction when I go into certain stores that sell very mass-made clothing. I can almost smell the syntheticness. Like I smell glue and plastic in the whole store. And I have a reaction to it. I'm like, kind of get me out of here. It's a little overwhelming for me. My kids laugh. They're like, you're so silly. I'm like, no, seriously. I feel it. I do. I'm so sensitive to it. I feel that
it's
very
because you're a gatekeeper
deeply
to the spiritual realm,
something for sure. So do you produce the belly binds or do you purchase them from another country? Or?
No, we produce them. Our headquarters used to be here in Los Angeles. And then I moved, my family and I I moved to Arizona. So now our headquarters is there.
Wow.
Yeah, we import it through a Pakistan supplier.
Okay.
And then we prep all the fabric. We have amazing grandmothers who actually help with prepping the fabric.
Wow.
And mothers. And then
Prepping the fabric in terms of dyeing it, or does it go
no,
through a
it does
process?
come already dyed.
Okay.
We do use an organic cotton supplier and manufacturer. But then when it does come in large bolts, then we have them prep, tear the fabric, fold the fabric, de-thread it. We use no seam method, so it's a frayed edge. And I used to in the early days of Bellibind sew the edges. But what I found is any seam can dig into the fold. Yeah. And so we prefer a frayed edge because it just lays better, more comfortably, and it doesn't dig in at all into the woman's body. It just contours beautifully. So we do a frayed edge. And yep, we make all of our products small batch, all organic ingredients. And that's so important to me because, again, anything you're putting on your body after birth, you're so open and sensitive that we want to make sure the mom's feeling ultra supported and nourished.
It's all good things.
Yeah.
Well, I had no idea. So is it similar to a rebozo coming from like South and Central America and
Similar
North America,
concept.
Mexico? Okay.
Yeah, because a rebozo, right? We all in the birth world are familiar. It's like a shawl. And so it's not very long. A rebozo is probably about, what is this? A yard or two, right? And they'll typically just kind of wrap it around and tie it in the back.
So set it up for me. How does it look from beginning to end? A client can purchase Bellibind from bellibind.com. Is that your website?
Yeah.
And do it themselves. Probably you have some sort of instruction manual with it or
That's
a video.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're right on track. So
Perfect.
we launched on Macy's
Okay.
in April
Look
as
at
the
you,
first
girl.
soft tie belly wrap
Wow.
on their platform.
That's
And
huge.
It's huge. It
Congratulations.
was a big win. Thank
Wow.
you.
Congratulations.
I said, Macy's, you guys are taking a stand to say womb healing should be mainstream. And I love that. Yeah. So you can get it off Macy's. You can put it on your baby registry if you have a
How
Macy's
fun.
registry.
Okay.
And we have just our best seller, which is our belly wrap and the shine oil. We call them our belly besties.
Okay.
But yes, on our website, which is bellibind.com, you can find all of our products and their wrap kits essentially, right? With a variation depending on what you want to experience.
So you don't necessarily have to have a Bellibind practitioner come and do it for you.
You don't. So we have online education resources.
Okay.
So it makes it really easy for families who don't have a specialist in their area to get this support. And we have 100% success with moms learning how to do it themselves virtually. Our app is launching. Probably by the time this is out, we'll have our app live, which is going to streamline not only our online education videos and resources for families who are doing it virtually, but also I'm all about community care and collaboration, right? That's that divine feminine of, there's enough for everyone. There's pregnant women every day.
It's abundance.
And so we're bringing in all the practitioners who resonate with belly binding, who offer it currently, and saying, hey, get on our platform so we can help families find you. Because even if we don't have a belly bind specialist in the area, we can now vet and source practitioners across the nation and the world through our app and make it accessible for families to find a local practitioner if they want. And then if not, they'll at least still have access to our products and our virtual
and how
stuff.
to use it and all of that.
Yeah.
So what is the theory behind it? You keep mentioning this word warmth. What is the theory about the healing power of belly binding?
Yeah. I loved what you were saying earlier about all the rituals, right, that your family have. And we're proving that just because it's, a ritual or something sacred doesn't mean it's not science backed. And so we're putting a lot of our own efforts and time into proving the science behind the ancestral healing of it. And the ancestral healing aspect is really rooted in traditional Chinese medicine. So traditional Chinese medicine talks about how in pregnancy you go from a hot state, right, increased blood volume, a whole nother life inside of you, to after birth, a cold state, right, an empty womb and a loss of vitality. And how do you revive that? So we're all about the revival of the woman, of the mother, and helping her reclaim that strength and vitality. And so the binding itself is creating a container of warmth and support. Of course, with the natural fibers and cotton, you're bringing a higher vibration of frequency to the womb space as well. And then even from a trauma perspective, I've had trauma specialists who've experienced the wrap and say, oh my gosh, like just the holding and how it feels around the womb space can help so much with trauma from birth. And then again, the intentionality of each layer being placed on the womb space by either a loved one, because we have partners who learn how to do it, and sisters and grandmothers and best friends who learn how to do it for the mother. And so now you're creating an opportunity of connection as well.
Oh, I'm so touched.
So yes, it's
because
just like,
someone could take your class to learn how to belly bind and order the kit just as a present to their whoever they want to support.
We have it so happen so often where moms who've experienced our care, maybe we don't have a specialist where their friend lives, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna buy the kit, and I shipped it to her, and I'm like, oh, that's so great. I have so many moms who are 2-3 years down the road, they come back and say, oh, I'm ready for my, after my second baby or my third baby. And so I love seeing them come back knowing how deeply restorative and healing it was. But yeah, that's kind of like the ancestral roots and theory behind it is because you have this warmth, now you're increasing blood volume to the area so that the tissues get this oxygen-rich blood to help with that healing process. You also have a weakened core. So you're going to have this structure because the cotton does create, I always hug my womb because it does create such a structure. It elongates you too because we go from the hips to under the rib cage. So it creates good posture. Right. So you avoid nursing slouch,
right, which is, such a shoulder pain and headaches and stuff and nursing for hours and ergonomics.
So you got the posture support, the core support, and there's, belief that, just make sure that when you're using the bind that it doesn't become a crutch and you stop it trying to engage your muscles. But I'm like, the first 6 weeks, you have no core. It's no crutch. You have no core because you spent 9 months expanding weak, and losing that core. So you need something to hold you together as you begin to reactivate and re-engage. So it's a great tool, is what I say. A great tool to come alongside your body and help it do what it would do naturally, just maybe a little quicker. And more supportive.
I just had a flashback. You are gonna laugh or be tickled. My mother-in-law. So when you're a young mom and your mother-in-law says something and you're like, yeah, whatever, mother-in-law, right? And I love my mother-in-law. I actually got to love her more and more and more as I got older because I realized her wisdom. But I remember, I think it was either me who had my first kid or it was one of our relatives had their first kid and we went to visit them. And she told her to get a book, a hardcover book, and put it on her belly and tie it with cloth. And I remember looking at her like, huh?
The heck did you just say?
Do what now? And both of us, we were both young moms and we both sort of did the eye roll like, all right, older lady, whatever, which we now take back. But exactly what you're saying is what she was what she was promoting. Now, maybe the book wasn't the best idea, but the theory was the same, right? She said, it's going to help. It's going to bring everything back together. I'm telling you, try it.
Yeah.
You know, and
now I'm like, go get my belly binding book.
Yeah.
Put it on. Then
exactly. Then wrap the belly bind book with the belly bind. I love it. It's so interesting you say that, because she did say that. God bless her. She had some wisdom.
Yeah. Well, we've partnered with pelvic floor physical therapists.
Yeah.
We are actually building out our medical advisory board
I
right
love
now
it.
to be a part of Bellibind, because, you know, our ancestors they've had the blueprint in a lot of ways, right? And they pass it on to us. And we're like, okay, folklore or not. But now we're starting to see the data and the research back it. And so we're building our medical advisory board to further support that. And one of the first people we brought on was a pelvic floor physical therapist. She's amazing. And, you know, a lot of them emphasize diaphragmatic breath, and that is the foundation to rebuilding your core.
Yeah, reconnecting.
And so that's a lot of what we teach initially, whether it's in our virtual or in-person sessions, is use the bind as a tool. It's not a cure-all. It's not about snapback culture. It's about really coming alongside your body, supporting it where it's weak, and then being mindful. It's a lot of mindfulness, right? And the first step is that mindful diaphragmatic breath connection. And so that's where we start. And I think maybe that can be the replacement of the book, right? There is a 30-second hold kind of breath that you can do to engage the core, firm it up while you have the support of the wrap. So it's not so exhausting on you.
And so my midwife hat is on for a second. What would be a contraindication? Is there a time that one shouldn't use it? Is there, like, if someone had a hemorrhage, or if someone has a C-section scar or an abdominal birth, what are the times where you don't recommend it? Yeah,
there's not a lot of contraindications, actually, especially with C-section recovery. The evidence is there, study-wise, that abdominal binding after major abdominal surgery enhances recovery after surgery. There's evidence there. So this is also why we don't wait 2 weeks to wrap our C-section moms, despite what you might read on blogs or otherwise. That's misinformation, right? The evidence says even as early as day 3 to 5, binding after a C-section is going to help reduce pain around the incision, help with the external compression, and do that counter pressure from like coughing, sneezing, laughing, crying. And then additionally, it helps with comfort with movement. So it's encouraging mobility without increasing pain.
And not increasing the risk of infection at the incision site.
No, because again, incisions are closed in a variety of ways, whether it's surgical glue, steri strips, staples, a waterproof bandage. But in all those scenarios, it's 100% cotton going over the incision. And what I have found in my practice is we've helped moms avoid incisional infection because we are able to, again, intentionally layer the fabric in a way to lift any belly skin off or belly flap off of the incision, which would create moisture pockets. And we intentionally lift it, create a nice cotton gauze protection around it. And so we've helped many moms avoid infection that were brewing with the binding. So C-section, no contraindication there. If there's a huge like PUPS rash happening, we typically like to wait until we see that starting to dissipate. So it can delay your start, but it doesn't mean you can't start at all. And then the only other one that I would say is a contraindication, but not a complete, like you can't do it, but you need to be in professional care, is if you have any symptoms of pelvic floor prolapse, pelvic organ prolapse. What I have found, bladder or uterus
or rectal.
And what I have found is the binding can actually be a good like alarm to those issues sooner rather than later. So, for example, we've had clients where they had a precipitous birth, but they were fine and they felt like their body was healing fine, but they were already signed up to do belly binding care. And we started doing their care. And again, we wrap from the pubic bone up. So we're lifting any extra belly weight off the pelvic floor.
I can see where this is going.
Yeah, we're not putting a ton of pressure at all either, because it's a lot of dialogue and communication, whether virtually or in person. How's the pressure? Shouldn't feel like a corset. Should just feel like a hug, right? But after they have it on, now they're noticing, oh, there's pressure here. And we often create this dialogue as well. Do you have a saggy tampon sensation? And if you notice those sensations, be sure to let us know and call your care provider. So again, dialogue that wouldn't necessarily happen, they're getting, because I also knew early on as a doula that pelvic floor organ prolapse goes undiagnosed until oftentimes it's more severe. And so that was one of the things I emphasized in our training is like, let's provide anticipatory preventative care while we're in the home with women who wouldn't know or think about these things, and educate them. So that's what we do. And then oftentimes we're able to identify early signs of pelvic organ prolapse and get them into pelvic floor physical therapy sooner rather than later. And what we have found is pelvic floor physical therapists will say, pause the binding. Let's start incorporating this breath work, these exercises, right? To bring everything up. But then you can use the binding as a tool again to support you in these exercises.
Yeah.
So again, it's not a contraindication, but it is a pause. Get proper care, get a good game plan, and then you can use it.
And it's so powerful because really, I mean, I'm a midwife, so I have my biases, but in the obstetrical model, typically you might see your MD at week 2. And then you might see your MD at week 6. That's more common.
Week 2 is pushing it. It's probably more like
now I'm starting to see
week 6 for sure.
The doctors that we're collaborating with now, thank God, because they're very, open with the midwifery model. Yeah. They've started incorporating a 2-week visit, which amazing. I love. But even then, they don't put their hand on the belly. It's more of a question. It's more of like, is anything going on? They can look at the incision. I find that it's more the midwives that are palpating the belly, looking for diastasis. So often the first person to even put their hand on your belly is either nobody, because you're not getting adequate care, or you're not going, or you don't have access to care, which is a whole other discussion. But I have had scenarios where a client will say to me, yeah, something's kind of feeling weird, like it's coming out of me. And I'll go over, I'll do a check, and sure enough, it's bladder or uterine prolapse. One woman was telling me that she had her first baby and she kept having bowel accidents in her underwear, like leaking bowel. And she's like, I just thought it was normal. Like, I thought, okay, I pushed out a baby. This is what happens after you had a baby. And she had so much shame around telling anyone for months and months. So I love the fact that another woman is going to be with you, talking you through these symptoms and sensations in your body, possibly putting their hand on your belly with permission.
Definitely putting hands on the bellies.
It is so healing.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw that was actually in the rebozo or a cloth used in that way was in Noeli Vinever's workshop. And she's a Mexican midwife. And she came and she was talking all about wrapping and binding and closing of the bones and things like that.
I was in her workshop.
You've been in her workshop. Yeah. Not in the most recent one, though, right?
No. Many years, like 2012.
No. She wrapped her rebozo around her as she was sitting. And I was like, oh my God, that rebozo looks like a hug. And it was I've started doing it now because it's so healing to like have that around us, which I think comes from the womb. All that time we spent hugged in a womb in that fetal position. And we just go back to that. What about the person who argues that, why are we doing something extra? The body knows what to do in the postpartum period. Women get pregnant, women have babies, women recover from having babies. Why do we need to do this? What would you say to them?
Well, there's a huge nervous system regulation that needs to happen after birth. And even with those individuals who physically look like, wow, your body was made to give birth and recover, right? We all know someone who's like, no fair. Like, that's how you healed, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
Even for those individuals, they are craving more because on a nervous system level, we need help reorganizing in our body. We've just gone from complete losing control of our body, right? To being a host to another being and not having control on how we expand and how it changes to however the birth experience went, right?
When it ends,
whether it was non-traumatic or traumatic. Yeah. And then you're thrusted into being the caretaker to this new life that's extremely needy. And even with the body knowing what to do, you're extremely depleted of hormones and of hormones that help you cope with stress.
The vitality, right? Yeah, your vitality is compromised.
And so while the body, yes, is designed for birth and knows what to do, the nervous system is still extremely dysregulated and it needs to be nurtured as well. And so I would say to that person that birth is as much physical as it is spiritual, and the tending to the body is also attending to the spirit, is attending to the nervous system.
Wow.
And when we look at women as more than just a physical being, but these true sacred portals that are life-giving, and you can't deny the magic that's there, right? The spirituality that's there and the energetic. I know you were talking earlier before we started about how the signal that's sent to the fallopian tube to then to catch from the ovary, the egg, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole energetic communication.
Oh, it's amazing.
Even in the birth of creating life, there's a lot of friction and there's a lot of buildup before ejaculation, right? Yeah. And then the egg impact is all energy. It's a spark. It's a boom. Yeah. So we are energetic beings. We are all radiant spiritual beings. And our nervous system is almost that connector between the two, the physical and the spiritual. And we need that.
I love that.
We need that.
I love that so much. I never thought about it in that way. That's brilliant. Really brilliant. And how much I've gone to many a workshop, a yoga class, a meditation class where they've had us put our hand on our heart after we're done. Or before we begin, or whatever the ritual is. And it's very powerful to put your hand on your heart. And if you've ever had the opportunity to have any sort of cardiac testing where you can actually see an image of your heart on the screen, like an ultrasound of your heart or something like that, and you see the dancing of your heartbeat, the way that it all synchronizes. And our hearts are doing that without us knowing every minute of every second of every day for however long our life is. And it actually makes me very, very emotional. So my connection with my heart is very, it's easy for me and it's very accessible emotionally. But I once went to a class where they had us put our hands on our belly. And that was a whole different vibration that took me a second to even be willing to do it, number one, but to be able to connect with it. And I think as women, I'm just going to make a broad stroke here, so listeners, bear with me. I think many times we might struggle with body image. We might struggle with our bodies changing, our bellies getting bigger, our bellies getting smaller, losing weight, gaining weight, society's view of our bodies, all of those things. There might be trauma. There might be sexual trauma that happens in that region and below. And I think that there's a disconnection that many people have with the belly button and below and the top of the body. And so pregnancy for someone who has experienced that can become very cognitive and very disconnected from the belly. And I think as you're speaking, this is actually a beautiful way to have that person reconnect with that part of the body and below that is the start and possibly the end. Well, it'll be the end, whether abdominally or vaginally, of the pregnancy. So I love that reconnection piece to it. I think that is absolutely huge.
I was just going to add that, when it comes to postpartum recovery, we can't talk about postpartum recovery without acknowledging the nervous system and that reclamation process. And belly binding, like I said, I saw from the beginning it being a powerful tool to help women do that. And whether it's our practitioners coming into the home in those first 6 weeks before they see a care provider and putting hands on their womb, doing a gentle womb rub, and then encouraging them to also continue that practice on their own. It makes a huge difference in that reconnecting, because especially for our C-section moms who there's a lot of trauma there sometimes, whether it's planned or not, and teaching them how they can gradually reconnect and not disassociate from the area, right? And then two, being mindful of it. Being mindful of your healing and saying, okay, yes, my body just did something amazing, but now I can create a container of warmth and support for it and hug it and embrace it. And it is a game changer when we do that for ourselves.
And forgive it.
And forgive it and thank
clients
it.
Talk about forgiveness and gratitude, all of the things.
We encourage them to put their hands on their womb and say thank you. I say the simplest way to show gratitude to your womb is just say thank you. Thank you for my fertility. Thank you for creating and shaping my baby so beautifully. Thank you for opening up for birth. And thank you for healing. Just that can be enough. And I hope everyone listening will take a moment to pause and place a hand on the heart, place a hand on the womb, and just tune in. Because when we attune to our womb after birth, we optimize our healing, because we are acknowledging our divine feminine access to the spiritual and how we are portals for that. Yeah.
And there's I'll tell you this, every time either my water broke naturally, I think with one of my deliveries, my water broke naturally. And with the other two, I had artificial rupture, which means someone broke the water. I felt so incredibly, not only kind of violated, but also sad that this portal had been accessed, that I think part of my going down emotionally was actually with my water breaking, because I had very hard postpartum periods, especially the first time. And so I always felt like the portal had been opened and now the baby had to come out, and then the portal is empty. And I love that notion of bringing warmth back into it, because we see when the baby is born, whether vaginally or by abdominal cesarean birth, that mother often starts shaking. And the shaking with a C-section is typically more because there are, medicines that are involved in the anesthetic. But even with a completely vaginal unmedicated birth, mothers shake after delivery. Part of that is cold. It's that the insides are now empty. The cavity is open. 2 is extreme hormonal changes. And 3 is emotion. So the shaking is a part of it, that coldness that comes in, and then blood loss that contributes to the coldness, right? So I love that notion of just bringing everything back together, a healing touch, a healing hand, a reaffirmation of gratitude and putting everything back. I'm going to do it with you now, in fact.
Yes. And the body is so wise, and it will heal. And even that primal post-birth shaking is almost a somatic, we know, vibration plates and things like that, shaking and releasing. Again, it's a nervous system reset.
Regulation.
So how do we help our bodies go from fight or flight, right, to rest and digest? Or freeze and fawn, to rest and digest. And so this is why we're partnering with vagus nerve stimulating devices to help moms' nervous systems recalibrate and regulate while also coming alongside with this belly binding. There's so many amazing things that we're doing to make sure moms feel ultra supported and families feel ultra supported in their postpartum recovery.
We have to have you back. My goodness. Thank you for coming. It's been an incredible hour and a half with you.
I know. Time flew by.
It did. And as with all my guests, I could sit here all week with you and we'd have things to talk about. So I would love to invite you back.
I would love to come back.
Thanks for your time.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thanks,
God bless.
Thank you. Mama Tusa is hosted by me, Atusa Benji, and produced and edited by Josh Stretton Carlson. Our theme music is composed by Mehri Lalazarian. If you'd like to support the show, please follow and review us on Spotify and Apple, or subscribe and like us on YouTube. This show is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be medical advice. Always consult with your healthcare provider when making medical decisions. See you next Tuesday.